We're back. Yes, we are. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis hanging with you on this Tuesday talking Eagles. And joining us right now does an awesome job. Eagles reporter, manager, and editor-in-chief, Bleeding Green. And you can follow him on Twitter at Brandon Gowton. Brandon, what's up, man? How you making out?
I'm doing good. How's it going, guys?
Good. I want to start with this.
Good.
It was a quiet day for A.J. Brown. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but you threw out a very interesting stat when he was with the Titans last year. Now, granted, there was no Derrick Henry in the game, so you figure they're going to be a little bit more pass happy when that's the case. However, he had a big one. He had a really big game against them. 11 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown on 16 targets. So he's had some success before against them. I know different teams and all that kind of stuff, but it's something just a little seed to be planted for this game because he's going to be fired up to bounce back after a quiet one.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, he won't be able to take advantage of Josh Norman, who was out there last year. But still, I mean, at the same time, like I said in the tweet, Eagles also have Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert on the field and Miles Sanders as well, where the Titans outside of A.J. Brown kind of had the corpse of Julio Jones and not much else going on for them there. So, yeah, I think A.J. kind of rose to the challenge in that game. I was rewatching some of the highlights from that one, and I think he really kind of liked the battle with a physical 49ers defense and kind of took that personally and wanted to own that matchup. And I think, after having a game where he only had 3 catches for 22 yards, and he could have had more. I think Jalen Hurts overthrew him in the end zone there at one point. I think AJ is primed for a big game against a 49ers team that if they're weak somewhere on defense, again, they give up the 6th most yards to wide receivers.
Brandon, I was just going to bring that up. I saw you put that out there on Twitter about 4 hours ago. For a team that finished as the #1 defense in the NFL, that is eye-opening, the amount of yardage they give up to wide receivers.
Yeah, and they have the talent in the middle of the field, right? It's all about the linebackers. I mean, we saw what's his name? The name is escaping me.
Fred Warner.
Yeah, sorry, Fred Warner. Run down the field with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, how many linebackers do you see running down the field with a #1 wide receiver like that? That's insane. So, I think this is maybe not a Dallas Goedert week like it was against the Giants linebackers who are not too good. I think it's more about working the outside, which I think is interesting too, because if you think about Jalen Hurts' game, he's gotten better at throwing over the middle of the field, but what he really wants to do is kind of more so work outside the numbers.
When I look at, this young quarterback coming into a hostile environment like this and being able to take advantage of the defense he's about to face, man, I think it's slim to none of the chances of being successful, considering the fact that, there's not been a rookie go to the Super Bowl. But #1, because he hasn't played against a defense like he's about to face this week. What are you thinking as far as him coming into our house and playing in our stadium?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the opposite in terms of I would worry where the 49ers don't have to worry about the middle of the field, I think, as much because of the talent they have. I think that is the area where the Eagles, are going to be probably attacked there. I think TJ Edwards has had a nice year. I think Kaiser White has kind of been up and down. He's done some good things. He's had some struggles. And Kyle Shanahan's going to look to go after those guys. And, I think that's going to be very interesting there. To your point, though, Barrett, we have not seen a rookie quarterback get to the Super Bowl. They're 0-4 in these championship games. And 4 touchdowns to 9 combined interceptions for these guys. Average margin of defeat in these games has been 10.25 points. So, not even close games in these losses. So historically, this is the standard for Jonathan Gannon. If the 49ers win this game, then that's a really bad look for him.
Yeah, I'm fascinated what he's going to how he's going to respond. It was his first game as a starter on the East Coast, going into a really hostile environment. And again, some of this is not just him. It's the way Kyle Shanahan has coached him up and the weapons that he has around him and all those kind of things, Brandon. But ultimately, at some point, it feels like the deeper you get into this, your quarterback's going to have to win a game for you or make huge critical plays down the stretch. And, if you're asking me who I trust more in that situation, I trust Jalen Hurts more in that spot.
Absolutely. And, I think Purdy was kind of begging to turn the ball over a bit there against the Cowboys. He had that drop pick, obviously, by Trayvon Diggs. I also think beyond the interceptions of it all, he just held the ball for a really long time sometimes. And you can't do that against this Eagles pass rush. They're going to get home. They're going to knock it out too. And, I think something that's kind of been flying under the radar here with the Eagles pass rush is, they've gotten some of these strip sacks, think about against Justin Fields, think about against Dak, think about just against Daniel Jones, and they haven't been able to recover any of them. Some of that's just bad luck, right? The ball bounces a certain way, you're not getting bounces. They're probably going to be due for some good luck at some point if they get that ball out. So I think that's something to watch.
Where as far as the running game, my matchup with the offensive line being the best offensive line in the league against, they're saying the best linebacking core in Nick Bosa in the league. I just think we have too much firepower as far as too much, 700 pounds on one side of the ball. The centers and all pro, the right guards and right tackles and all pro. Yes, you have two good linebackers and a defensive end. I just think we have more resources in there to dominate the game, even when running the ball and dictating tempo, whatever they want to do. That's just my way of thinking. What are you thinking about that?
Eagles offensive line is playing at a whole nother level right now. Hassan Reddick alone against the Giants, and let's be clear, Hassan's obviously fantastic right now. He had 7 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, in that Giants team. Giants team as a whole against the Eagles offensive line had 7 pressures combined with the 19 players they played on defense. That is insane. Lane Johnson, who is playing through this groin injury, 0 pressures allowed. He had 2 penalties, but you'll take that with the 0 pressures allowed. And look, Nick Bosa is certainly better than anyone the Giants have. For as good as a year as Hassan Reddick is having, like I just said, Bosa has 18.5 sacks right now. He's at a different level. But you have to feel good about the way Lane is playing and the offensive line as a whole is playing, and the fact that Jeff Stoutland is here. So that's another unit I trust in right now.
How about that? The interesting thing with the stats. So the Eagles during the regular season had 70 and San Fran had 44. But it was much more spread out for the Eagles. Yeah, Reddick was unbelievable. But, we all know they had 4 guys in double digits, right? If you look at the 49ers, it's not as evenly dispersed here, Brandon. You had, 18.5 or what? Yeah, I think it was for altogether for Bosa. The next guy with the highest sack total had 5. They're not anywhere near the Eagles level in terms of their ability to get after the quarterback. One guy is for sure, but not as a unit, that defensive line.
And then Charles Amenahu here, who just as we're right before recording here, facing allegations of domestic violence. Yeah, he's second on their roster in sacks this season. So and if you include the playoffs, so it's not really a deep group as much as it is. You have a super elite high end talent in Bosa. There's something to be said for the deep group and the rotation, the fact that you can keep these guys fresh and, you're really allowed to be effective in limited playing time. We saw that with Brandon Graham this year. Brandon Graham had his best year of his career, even though he played the fewest snaps of his career. When he's been a regular player. So, it's crazy how much being able to rotate these guys helps.
Hey, Brandon, what do you think about Nick Sirianni comparing Jalen Hurts to Michael Jordan?
I knew that was going to get some attention. I think you have to look at exactly what he was saying in terms of I don't think he was saying, because everyone's mind is going to go to, he's comparing the player. He did not say Jalen Hurts is the Michael Jordan of the NFL. I don't think no one's going to say that. It's just an outlandish thing to say.
Right.
I get where it's coming from. I think maybe don't invoke MJ Sirianni, but I understand there is something to be said, and we've said it probably all year throughout the year, just the confidence and the swagger and the personality the team takes on when Jalen Hurts is out there. There's just this calming presence. There's a stability that everything's going to be okay. You can trust it's going to work out. He's got us. We're going to be good. And really, it reminds me of Foles in the Super Bowl run. He had such a calming presence out there, and I think we're seeing a lot of that with Jalen as well.
Well, who are we to question anything? And I mean all of us, me included, to question and chuckle at anything Sirianni says, considering you go back to his first season when he started talking about water and plants. We're like, what the heck is this? We've covered this game a long time. I've never heard a coach say anything like that. Lo and behold, you understood it at the end of the season.
Players buy it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you saw C.J. Gardner-Johnson change his Twitter picture to the picture of Nick Sirianni with the chain on. So, it is working with them. And I think Sirianni's done a good job. It's really impressive what he's been able to do. I also think something that is becoming more apparent now is just how much of a villain he is to these other, like, for obviously Eagles fans love him, but man, these teams, other fans, now that they're seeing him on this playoff stage, like, they can't stand this guy. So I think that's even more fun if you're an Eagles fan, that everyone else hates your coach.
Well, look, they win whenever you win a playoff game, obviously, but Brandon, he was in his zone for Saturday, man. Like, he was, I know what the bleep I'm doing. The reaction to the touchdown, even he's always demonstrative for a coach, a lot more than most, for sure. But even by his standards, he was wired, man, on Saturday.
That's him, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a put on. This isn't like an act. Like, that's Nick. He's that kind of guy. He is fired up. He's kind of unhinged is the word I would use sometimes. And I think, if you're going to be our authentic self, I think that's going to work out probably more often than not. I think between Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, this is a marriage of two individuals who are extremely competitive, and that word gets thrown around a lot, in sports. Obviously, there's level of competition, but I think these are guys that are like obsessed at a different level. I think you're seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking at the matchups on, their offense against our defense, what's your key matchup going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to the AJ Brown of it all. It's just like, I think, for him to have that quiet of a game, I think he's due. He's gonna come through. I think you saw him sulking a bit, and there's the injury involved in there, but I think that's going to be critical. Also, look again. Why did the Eagles win the Super Bowl in 2017? Easy answer: they dominated in the trenches, and that's what they did against the Giants. And I think they're going to have to continue to do that. And I know it's going to be a lot of it's going to be tough to run on this 49ers defense, and it will be because they're physical, they hit hard. At the same time, we saw the Eagles go up against the Saints the past couple of years, this #1 run defense, and they were able to run on those defenses. So, I wouldn't shy away from anything. If I'm the Eagles, I say play your game. You don't have to be afraid of this team at all. They're respectable. They're a great team. 49ers are great. You have to respect the heck out of them. But I would not be. You can't play afraid of this opponent.
Brandon, what's one of the biggest matchups you'll be watching when this game is played on Sunday?
I mean, I think you have to look at the coaching of it all too, in terms of Nick Sirianni. He's giving the Eagles an edge when he's going for it on 4th down and being aggressive, whereas Kyle Shanahan is kind of the opposite. He gets into situations where maybe it's 4th and 2. He wants to kick the field goal, and in a big game like this where points could be maybe at a premium. I think that's a big deal. Now, obviously, Shanahan's done a great job in terms of 49ers on this big winning streak and everything. But, there's times where I think he's going to leave points on the field, and I expect Sirianni to be aggressive. And I think, at the end of the day, that aggression is going to win out.
How much, Brandon, in your estimation, in watching that game Sunday between the Cowboys and the 49ers, was the 49ers just enforcing their will, doing what they do, versus the Cowboys not being up for that moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of the 49ers are doing defensively, you have to give them a lot of credit. At the same time, I thought the 49ers were the better team than the Cowboys were. And I thought it would be better for the Eagles from a standpoint of, if you want to get the worst team, it's probably better if the Cowboys come into the link, because I don't think they were quite as good, even though, better quarterback. But when you weigh it all together, and that's the thing, like Brock Purdy, he doesn't even need to play super well. That's the crazy thing. He doesn't need to have an awesome game because of just how good that defense is. They can kind of bail him out and really carry the team. It's not many units in the league that can do that. It's pretty rare, and obviously Shanahan will do his best to make the most of what Purdy can give them. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is a testament to the 49ers. I think they're a great team.
Do you like Gannon and his way he calls plays? Recently, I mean, do you think he's going to be more aggressive?
I think Gannon deserves some credit for. Obviously the performance as a whole, keeping the Giants to 7. But one of my most favorite things from that game, taking away, was he forced the issue on the Daniel Jones turnover. CJ Gardner-Johnson came on a blitz.
Yep.
Daniel Jones had to get it out hot. James Bradbury, a very good corner, was able to take advantage and jump the route, make the pick. And to do that against a Giants team that had the fewest interceptions in the league this year, Daniel Jones did a great job of taking care of the football. I thought that was really impressive, and also kind of speaks to the fact that it's not about blitzing on every down, but it's about picking your spots at least and finding times to actually be aggressive, force the issue, force the team you're playing into a mistake, as opposed to just sitting back and waiting for that mistake to happen.
Do you think the Eagles will lose either one of their coordinators, or when you look at the competition they're stacked up against out there in terms of job opportunities, that maybe this is just not their year. I mean, if there ever was a year for either one of these guys to shine and move on, it would be this year. But there's some stiff competition out there.
Yeah, and the timing doesn't help them necessarily. The candidates in that, they can't be hired officially, at least until after the Eagles season is over. So if they're going to the Super Bowl, maybe a better chance you can hang on to them. I tend to think Gannon's going to get a job. There was a lot of buzz about him being the favorite in Houston last year before things kind of went sideways there, and the Brian Flores lawsuit happened, and ended up hiring Lovie Smith instead. So, I think they might end up going with him. Although D'Amico Ryan certainly seems like he's in play there as well. And I would go with D'Amico if it was up to me. But also, I think I saw Albert Breer say there's some buzz that the former Titans executive, the Cardinals might have interest in Gannon. So, we'll see on him. I tend to think a team is going to hire him before Steichen, even though I think Steichen might have more of the chops that a team might like to see in terms of the acumen. I think Gannon has more of the personality. I think just going off of what we've seen from Steichen in some press conferences, I don't know that teams are necessarily ready to think he might be like the CEO type to lead a team just yet.
If you jump back to the matchup here with the Niners, Brent, and you look at the weapons they have offensively, Kittle, McCaffrey, certainly Ayuk with Debo, do the weapons that they have counter what the Eagles do well, or does it kind of feed into what the Eagles do well with some of these guys who they're going to be leaning heavily on in your estimation?
I think it's hard to say from a standpoint of, I don't think we've seen the Eagles play a team, quite like this in terms of how often they use, these multiple running back sets and an offense just of so much play action like this. They're kind of unique in that regard. And obviously just some of the, like George Kittle himself is just a unique talent that you don't see very often. So that's what part of what makes this matchup, I think, so interesting, is that you don't fully know what to expect. This is a new look for this team.
Wait, a new look as in what? What do you mean
just
by
in
that?
terms of, again, these skill sets of these players
that they haven't faced?
Yeah, and in these also just the usage of the person. Again, you're talking about like 22 personnel. Like, I just don't think we've seen a lot of the Eagles go up against a lot of that this year.
Well, yeah, and I've been trying to tell people that for the longest. It's funny, that they're going to see. Well, both of these teams are going to see a newness that they haven't experienced. Both teams will be that way. But I'm looking at, even the quarterback situation with, that defense, the 49er defense facing Jalen Hurts and them playing on the West Coast, understanding how, those quarterbacks are. You don't see quarterbacks like that necessarily in that division. You don't see that. You see, I mean, you got the Smurf down in with the Cardinals. But I mean, other than that, he's just running around, but he's not running around to run. He's running to push the ball down the field. Jalen Hurts does everything, what I'm saying, as far as he can look down the field. He can just go out there and outright run it. Do you play man-to-man against it? D'Amico Ryan's going to have his hands full trying to defend a guy like Jalen Hurts, man. And he hasn't experienced that yet. And those are one of the key matchups, I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I think one of the areas, again, that this 49ers defense has had some issues. We saw it last year, when they came to Philly. Jalen Hurts, I think, had something like 8 runs for 80 yards that day. He was able to have success with his legs. Obviously, Dak isn't the same runner he used to be, but he converted some key, he had some key first downs against this defense with his legs. So, I absolutely think that's going to be a factor. And look, the Eagles had Hurts 6 design runs for him in that Giants game. So, he's not limited in that regard. At least they're ready to use. And, this is the NFC Championship game. It's also the time to not save him anymore. Like, you're going to go all out. So I absolutely expect Jalen Hurts' mobility to be a factor.
What has surprised you most about this team? What you thought they were going to be versus what they are? Is it the easy answer, the improvement of Hurts, or is it something else?
It has to be the extent. We can all say, even if you were one of the biggest proponents of Jalen Hurts, you thought, you believed in this kid, you were optimistic. I think you're lying if you said you thought he would be this good. And I also think you might be lying if you because even, I had a skepticism about, how good he can be as a passer. I thought he could improve, but I didn't think he, it was a large bridge to gap from where he was last year to where he is this year. And I also think I probably underestimated, again, the value of leadership and, the way the team takes on his calm personality. I think those things can kind of get overrated sometimes because, I think talent at the end of the day is probably going to win out. But I think with him, it's kind of different. I think he's at a different level again. When I talked about that with Sirianni, when they're at like different levels of competitive, different levels of this composure. Like it's not something you see often, but I do think it matters here.
Hey, Brandon, the trend has been for years to defer when it comes to the opening kickoff. But in this particular game, if you win the coin toss, do you take the ball or defer? Obviously, if you're the home team and the Eagles did what they did against the Giants, it brings the house down. If the Niners, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do, and they're going to defer because that's what they
what they do. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, we saw, like to your point, T-Gun, we just saw them, get that ball first, get it in the end zone, and stadium was rolling. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns I have when it comes to, again, in defense, when it, you're allowing the team to kind of convert these first downs. It's kind of sucking the wind or the air, the juice, whatever you want to call it, out of the stadium a little bit. Fans are they're not ready to get up and cheer as much for that maybe 4th, 3rd, and 3 conversion on a long drive. So, I see the merit in going for it. I might consider it, but we all know they're going to just defer.
It's all wishful thinking when it comes down to it. All right, Brand. So what happens, man? Eagles are 2.5 point favorites, depending on where you look today, heading into this one. What do you think in the game itself?
Yeah, I think, whereas we saw the Giants game kind of be like a redux of the NFC Championship game, 5 years to the date against the Vikings, a blowout kind of performance. I think this is going to kind of be more of like that Falcons game from that playoff run where, it was 15-10 at the end. It came down to the wire. Right. I think this is going to be a very competitive, very tough game. This 49ers team, they play such a physical, tough brand of football, both offensively and defensively. Like they run hard, they hit hard. It's going to be tough. At the end of the day, though, again, Eagles have the better quarterback. I think they're so strong in the trenches. Home field advantage is no small deal here. 49ers team can be had. We saw the Chiefs blow them out. We saw the Raiders give them a challenge late in the season.
500 net yards the Raiders put up against them.
Exactly. With Jared Stidham. This team is not invincible. I feel extremely confident in the Eagles. It's a similar feeling to I had back in during 2017 run. I just think they're not Jalen Hurts is not a quarterback you bet against right now. This Eagles team as a whole is not a team you bet against. I like the Eagles to win. It'll be close, but I like them to win.
Brandon, good stuff, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro.
Really good stuff, man. I suggest everybody check out Brandon's work. It's awesome. I read every single day. Eagles reporter, manager, and editor-in-chief at Bleeding Green. Follow him on Twitter at Brandon Gowton. Brandon, thanks, man. Thanks,
guys. Take it easy.
Appreciate you, bro.
Interesting insights always from Brandon there. I keep coming down to, and I try to simplify it like I did with the Giants. I know it's only Tuesday, and we'll get heavier into predictions and all that. But for the Giants game, I just started looking at positions and who wins, who checks off more boxes overall. Now, this is different. Certainly, San Fran is a lot more formidable in a lot of spots. I still give the advantage to the Eagles, and especially you start a quarterback, as far as I'm concerned. I just think at some point, Brock Purdy's got to look like a rookie. I mean, not everybody steps in there and is like Tom Brady or whatever. Like, is there a human piece of this thing with him on the road in a hostile environment, possibly in a game where he's got to bring him back or something like that? Could this be the game that he looks human and makes a mistake?
This by far will be his greatest challenge. Everybody has analyzed and dissected this young man. And let's face it, he has had an incredible run. But he has not seen what he's about to see at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday in terms of fans, in terms of pressure, in terms of ebbs and flows. I mean, you're one of 4 teams left standing. There's 2 games left, and everybody who's a football fan, whether you're a fan of the Eagles or the Niners or not, whether you're a fan of the Chiefs or Bengals or not, is going to be watching because it's football and because so much money is being heavily bet on this game. and all that's going through his mind, and he's being pulled in 20 different ways. And I'm sure the organization has done an incredible job of shielding from all these multitudes of media requests and have him focus on just playing football. Hey, the Eagles have done it for years in terms of shielding their quarterback. Donovan McNabb, it doesn't make a difference who it is. They do an incredible job of shielding their primetime players away from the limelight and excessive exposure to open media. They want him nothing but football day and night. But the bottom line is you're facing a defense that had 70 quarterback sacks this year. They're coming, whether it's a four-man front or occasionally Gannon will shock you and send a safety down. He'll put a safety down the box or have a cornerback looping, or a corner coming off the edge. You're going to see some stuff you haven't seen in 17, or he hasn't played 17, but you haven't seen at all this year. I just don't think, as good as he's been, I don't think for 60 minutes he can stand the test of time in this environment. I just don't. Yeah, if he does,
yeah,
the first thing comes out of my mouth is wow.
Well, I also think, look, Bosa's going to get some pressure in there. We know you're going to have to get the ball out quick, but I just don't think the rest of that line stands up to what he brings to the table. And if he is in there quickly, either get it out quick or take off. The Eagles quarterback's a better runner than Dallas's quarterback, even though, Prescott's got some mobility. If that heat is really coming hard, this is where we could see Jalen have a big leg game.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, go ahead, B. Brooks.
And you got to look at this also, man. Can he hold up against the run? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying, because I've seen him in run type situations. If he's on the outside, he's trying to get up the field, and you capture that outside on him. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I done seen him get dumped on his head a lot, man. So can he hold up against? That's 700 pounds leaning on you for an entire game. I don't care who you are. You get tired, bro. You get tired. And Jordan Mailata should feast on him on running plays just to make sure on passing plays he has a little less of that oomph in
him. Gas,
yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's come back and let's dig a little bit deeper into the Niners, go behind the numbers here and just see, what the Eagles are up against here. We'll do that. We'll continue that discussion. We got a lot of good stuff from the NFL, some numbers about how many viewers watch the games over the weekend, what coaches are coming back, taking gigs, who's interviewing where, a lot of stuff in store for you. Don't go anywhere. By the way, coming up at 1:30, we'll take some questions from the chat section as well. So have your questions ready during that segment and fire away. All right, Barrett Brooks, Derek Gunn, Rob Ella, Sports Take. Tell a friend, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Also pound that like button. All right, let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Yeah, Pro Action Restoration is your go-to. It's your lifeline. If you have a home, you have a business, you have a property, and you go through the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, mold damage, you name it, they can handle it. All right. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I know this because I reached out to them on a Saturday. They got right over, cleaned up the problem. The price was reasonable. The crew was completely professional, clean, awesome situation. And it was just a big sigh of relief. I can tell you that for sure. They're licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company also. So again, water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.